322 is coming out soon, guys. And we've got a lot of interesting features here. So I've got a lot of videos and the roadmap. And we're going to go over everything that I think is going to come with 322. The stuff they've talked about so far, they have kind of confirmed. I mean, a lot of this stuff, like you can see, is committed. Some of the stuff is still not committed, but there has been a lot they've talked about. We've seen a couple leaks. And overall, we have a decent idea of what 322 is going to look like. So I thought I'd bring you along for a little detailed dive. You know how we do. We're going to start with ships. That's always easiest. We will be heading through the Santokyai, which is coming up. We're going to look into the cargo updates that are coming up. This is going to be an overall look at the cargo refactor. So we'll get a little bit more than what's in 322, but I think the context helps. We got both of those. We got salvage preparation, as well as what we've heard from Ivkati in terms of salvage. New settlements, Arena Commander updates, Squadron 42 updates as they are coming over to the PU from what we've heard. And that's mainly what I have so far. So let's check out the roadmap roundup first here and see what they've said. Notable changes for November 29th, 2023. We've got new Derelict settlements. We knew about that. This is actually a very interesting one because, well, there's some interesting history here. We'll get into that over the course of the last year. Arena Commander maps. This is I believe these are FPS maps. Okay, FPS and flight mode maps. This is very cool. Like, we're getting a lot more PU locations inside of Arena Commander, and the whole point of Arena Commander is to allow you to play Star Citizen faster. So to be able to put together events to show your friend easy and quick combat, and hopefully this expands beyond combat to include things like salvage and mining and engineering, as we're seeing with multi-crew locations. This could be the best way to showcase Star Citizen. So it's good to see them putting in more locations from the PU, because now you don't feel like you need to go in the PU as much to do that. They've also got the multi-crew and spawn locations, which is a big deal. We'll be going over that in the videos. And then the Siulan. So it's not a monumental roadmap roundup. This is stuff that we kind of knew about already, but it's, I guess, getting mostly committed. Yeah, it's just the fact that they're committed, which is good. So this is the latest update we've had on the Santokyai, which is the next alien ship we're getting after the Gatak Siulan. Coming in 322, at least as of right now. It's not committed, but it's still on the roadmap. Let's check out what the last update on it was saying.
Let's talk about the Santokyai. We haven't talked about the Santokyai in a while. You can see here the alien material work continues to iterate as members of the NAVC continue to develop the resources our Xi'an friends would likely use to build their ships from. Through their use of a variety of material maps, they're hoping to land on what's essentially an alien version of carbon fiber, which should add lots of nice detail to the exterior and then add a pearlescent finish that'll really make it shine in the light. We've also got a quick look at the back of the wings. And then let's take a look at the cockpit, which you might remember from our Alien Week update has been a bit of a challenge to get right, wanting of course to give it that alien uniqueness while still being usable by the hands of humans and Zero State alike.
I don't know why that's a joke, but it's kind of funny.
And while we're talking about the Santokyai, did you know that we have an entire team dedicated to branding over in the Montreal studio? We've rarely touched on it.
Okay,
but Nick
so this
Ford
is actually, I really like this guideline thing. I used it in a video I released today. This is cool, and I hope they show more of this. It shows how much emphasis they're putting into making sure that everything that we encounter in the game is really purposeful. And the video that I've been talking about, I'm doing about Turbulent, goes into that a lot, because you'll notice that they did that with Pyro, whereas the colonialism outposts had a sort of thing going on, like way back when they started doing them, and we all remember they had like the Tatooine vibe. We all knew where they were headed, but it really felt like it was 2021 in CitizenCon when like the Montreal team came out and presented the space stations, the colonialism outpost interior and exteriors, and we got the idea of how they were branding it. Feels like every system, every ship, every item, they're gonna like bang us over the head with, you must understand where this fits in the universe. So, you know, as long as it doesn't go overboard, I love it. And this seems like a cool sign of the direction they're going in, at least with ships.
And his team over there are dedicated to developing the individual visual identities of Star Citizen's several hundred internal...
I love these. I think the only thing that really surprises me here would be that MISC is leaning more high design than industrial, but I can kind of see that because they split both ways. But yeah, I really like this sort of stuff. This is juicy. This is crunchy.
Persistent universe brands, including this look at the brand document of Apoa, maker of the Santokyai we just looked at. Really tied that together. Now, some folks might write branding off as simply marketing, but the work of this team has been essential to recent improvements to Hurston and Area 18 and New Babbage you just saw, allowing artists and designers alike to create consistent and immersive identities for each location. And as this work extends to nearly every aspect of the verse, it'll continue to help define and refine all visual elements you'll encounter as citizens making your way through Stanton, Pyro, and beyond.
All right, so that was mainly, I was just giving you that was context for the Santokyai, but generally that was the Santokyai that we saw, and as you can see, it's pretty different. This is not going to be a ship for everyone. It's a lot like the Cartual, and honestly, you don't see the Cartual too often. This thing is like a very, very maneuverable medium fighter. I think it's a medium fighter. Yeah, it's a medium fighter compared to the Cartual being a light fighter. So it's got a couple good guns on it, and these thrusters are like really valuable. These things are going to help you move in every direction faster than other ships. But as you can see, it's really spindly. Like, it's like a little grasshopper thing. You could get these sparks shot off pretty quickly. So part of this appeal is the alien side of it. Part of it is the maneuverability. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to find this an enjoyable ship, but I don't think you're going to see it around too often, to be honest. So that's the Santokyai. The other vehicle we have coming in 322 is the X1. This is the next hover bike in the game. This one came... Gosh. They must have introduced this as a concept back in like 2018 or 2019, and it just took forever to get in the game. It's kind of funny because this was sold as the companion bike to the 400i, and then the 400i came out, and there was no one X1, and everybody's like, "What's there's like a special hanger in the 400i? Check this out. You put your 100i on here, or your X1 goes up into the 400i. It's a perfect little ground runabout." It also is cool because it's a closed cockpit hover bike, so you're safe in space, you're safe in atmosphere, you can get around if you happen to forget your helmet somewhere. It's actually a pretty nice deal, and it looks really cool. So here's the latest update we got on this as well. Hover bike with 3 variants. No, there are 3 variants of this bike coming in 322.
Elwin and our North America vehicle content team have recently completed a first pass sprint bringing the Origin X1 to life, which you can see here is undergoing just a few minor changes from its concept, necessitated by continuing development of the vehicle component and resource management systems. Now, while this is still white box, that hasn't stopped the team from also visualizing some baked-in lighting improvements, and overall, even with the subtle shape changes, the X1 is looking fantastic in its white box form and will only continue to look even better.
Huh, is the X1 open, not closed? Okay, everybody was telling me it was closed last time, and I thought it was open, but people were saying it slides back. It says open canopy. Okay, I'm sorry then. I'm wrong about that. I said it was open last time and got a bunch of crap for it, so there's listening to chat. Hey, wait, I'm listening to chat right now. Okay, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to confirm this myself. This is why I shouldn't listen to chat all the time. Hey, look, it says it right here. X1 is an open canopy racer. Why did I not just look that up the first time? All right, so open canopy racer. You are not safe in atmosphere
as it progresses further down the pipeline towards release.
So yeah, not nearly as valuable as it would be if it was closed canopy. So that is a good little thing to note, and I'm sorry that I said that the first time. So there's our 2 vehicles that are coming in 322, and you can see them here. Santokyai, medium fighter from Aopoa, and the Origin X1. And then the 2, I guess it's the X1 and the 2 variants instead of 3 different variants. It's not the most exciting patch, I think, for most people in terms of ships. Not as exciting as getting the Argo SRV, the C1, and The A1. That was a good patch for ships. But we might get something else in this patch that's not been mentioned. That's straight to flyable. Who knows? But that's ships and vehicles. Let's move on to features. All right, here's some updates on cargo. I'm going to let this go for a little bit, and then we're going to jump closer to the more specific part that we have, which I think might be in the second episode, so I probably won't play this whole bit. But specifically what we're getting is boxes inside of boxes and the ability to see what's in the boxes. So we'll see if that comes up here.
Request to ATC, and the hangar will move into place. We'll open up the doors. The system will allocate the space for you. Open the hangar and you can land. For the players, it will seem seamless, but underneath the hood, the system itself is going to be maintaining a representation of where all the players are, what requirements are needed, without having a bottleneck for players who are actually just trying to play the game otherwise. And then we have persistent hangars. Persistent hangars are kind of an evolution of instant hangars. And really what it is it's our first step towards real player ownership in the game beyond ships.
The cool thing is that you'll be able to put your stuff in it, come back to it, and it's still gonna be there.
It's just
All right,
whatever the...
So no, this is more persistent hangar stuff. I'm not trying to build the hype on that. We're trying to talk about boxes here. We're not getting persistent hangars in 322, I don't believe. So let's jump ahead a little bit.
What happens inside those boxes going forward?
With 320, we introduced a new packing system that allows us to use a larger set of box sizes. Right now, that includes 1 SEU, 2, 4, 8, 16, 24, and 32. However, with this new version of cargo coming out subsequently, we're gonna be adding the ability to have what we call inventory container boxes.
Inventory actually plays a big part of cargo as well. When you look at the sheer scope of number of boxes and a number of weapons and armor and FPS entities that we have in our game, we really want to make sure that not only is cargo physicalized, but that inventory has a proper location and place as well.
If you go to Port Tressler and you hit I, you'll bring up the player inventory screen, and you'll see that, okay, I have my access to Port Tressler inventory no matter where I am standing in the station. That's going to go away. This is very important because what it means is it gives the players a way to transfer in a very clean and effective way all of the loose items that you collect during gameplay.
A big change that's coming up is going to be having properties for those boxes. So that could be something like a box that's fragile.
So let me just confirm here, because it does sound like what they say in the roadmap here. Inventory cargo containers. Now, this sounds like what they're talking about. The feature will allow players to store items in smaller cargo containers in larger cargo containers. This is super undescriptive, but I'm pretty sure this means boxes you'll be able to just access the inside of boxes, which is like, oh my god, that's, you know how long we've been waiting for this? Let me see something. Let's go back to Star Citizen cargo design documents. Let me show you the first time they showed us this idea. Now, I don't know if it's going to be completely to this extent in terms of like we can literally just throw a gun into a box and it's being stored there. But check this out. This is like back in the day. When is this actually? This is 2015. That's actually not as early as I thought it was. But they have this idea here of item containers. Every container has 2 key statistics: cargo units and number of ports. These define everything the game needs to know about loading a container into a pallet or attaching it to a ship. SU defines the exterior dimensions of the container in cubic meters increments, while the number of ports defines how many discrete slots into which items can be placed are available. So they had this idea already of items being placed inside of boxes. This is how clunky it was. Y'all remember the mystical use command? Lord. So they had the idea, and this is something that somebody pointed out in chat, like this is something we can do now kind of with the inventory menu. But what it seems like they're basically just doing is saying, okay, so you have nested inventories, we're physicalizing that. And as Scott said in chat, it is boxes and boxes, but it also sounds like they're including more than just boxes. It sounds almost like you're going to be able to loot all the stuff, go outside to a 4SU box, chuck it in the box, and that'll actually show up in an inventory sort of situation, as opposed to like, I guess, chuck it in a box and then put that box in a box. I don't know. It seems a little bit more robust to me than just boxes and boxes. I'm hoping that it's going to be individual items and they can be easily added to some sort of like a manifest or something for like the boxes or the ship that you put the boxes in. But I guess that would be further along with the Mobiglass update. Either way, boxes and boxes. Is this still the plan though? That's what I'm hoping. We'll have to see.
That's coming up is going to be having properties for those boxes. So that could be something like a box that's fragile, or a box that could be radioactive, or that needs to be kept cold.
I don't think we're getting
The other
this
thing
stuff.
we're looking at with cargo and cargo boxes is the ability to store large items in your cargo boxes. This could be anything from a ship weapon to even...
See, so this is kind of what we're talking about. Is this coming in 322? We're not really sure.
smaller vehicles like Grey Cats. That way when you're going with your friends, you're going to do a long haul across the verse, you can have these larger boxes filled to the brim with as many ship weapons as your ship is going to carry.
Anything that you think you want to take with you and hold on to, now you can put them in an inventory container box, snap them into the cargo grid, and haul it into your ship. Additionally, you'll be able to take those to the freight platforms in order to put them into your inventories. So it gives a kind of universal way to haul things around in the game, as well as a way for players to be able to pirate player inventories now.
So this is like, I mean, this is like the actual cargo refactor.
Together in these inventory containers, it just takes a tractor beam in order to carry them off. So it gives a lot of gameplay possibilities for us to have with these loose items.
A lot of these things will tie into missions and where you decide to place them on your ship. So we're really trying to make sure with cargo, it's not just a wide system, but that we're actually adding these kind of elements to help further gameplay, missions, and purpose.
You guys had the
So it's a it's part of the cargo refactor. This gets the next step. We started with they just physicalized boxes, and then they moved on to like more tractor beam functionality. Now we've got boxes inside of boxes, storing things in boxes. Then we'll have freight elevators and persistent hangars. Then we'll have manifest and actual the ability to transfer cargo more systemically in like industrial settings. So it's coming along slowly, and this 322 edition is just the next step, but I think it's a pretty big one. I don't think this really captures the scale of it the way they're describing it here, and I hope we see... I guess we don't need to see more of this in ISC. Like, they gave us 2 episodes here talking a lot about design and cargo and stuff, so... yeah, I guess this is a good update, and we've seen enough about this. I hope it goes to PTU soon so we can get more. But that is kind of what we're going to get from cargo. Now... there is, I don't think we're getting any ability to buy or retrieve things, because I think that's going to be linked to the persistent hanger. When I say things, like things you've bought, subscriber items and stuff. So we'll move on from cargo, but that's kind of the cargo-based changes that are coming in 322. The next part that we're going to go over here is salvaging, structural salvaging. This is the real salvaging. We did a deep dive into salvage earlier this year. You can find on the second channel. Probably like 2 months ago, and we talked about the different types of salvage: siphoning, structural, scraping, all that jazz. So this is the next version. We haven't really seen much of it. I'm going to show you what we have seen so far, which is a prototype, and then I'm assuming we'll probably get some eyes on this in the next 24 to 48 hours, if not before you see this video. So here's an explanation of how this salvage is going to work and sort of how they're going about it.
So what we're going to do on this week's show, the first of our Q3 shows where things are a little bit different, we are going to look at a feature at the absolutely earliest stage. This is earlier than we've ever shown any feature ever, the prototype phase. What we're about to show you is not going to look good. It's not going to look pretty. It's going to be weird, poppy, and buggy. So we're just warning you ahead before you take the footage and put it in your YouTube videos. What is the prototype that we're going to look at right now, Jacob?
We're going to be looking at the prototype for munching, the next tier of salvage. The idea being we need some way to take apart a larger ship and break it into little pieces so that you can then pick it up in your salvage ships, gain some material from that, and you'll be able to sell that later. But we're going to be looking at just the breaking a ship apart phase, which is what we're prototyping here.
All right, so I got it queued up here. Let's take a look at this here. So obviously this is a vulture approaching a gladius.
Yep. So for the prototype, we've added in a new munching mode, sub-mode to salvage. So all of that hull scraping UI has disappeared. And we're going down to just what we need for this prototype, which is the ability to break apart a ship, which at the moment is going to look exactly the same as if you blew it up with your guns, but in future that would look rather different.
What's happening right here? I see the bar filling up on the left,
Okay,
but nothing's
so
happening with the ship.
Yeah, so this is the placeholder for the actual gameplay that would happen here. The design will have some actual gameplay for what you have to do as a player to break the ship apart, but we put in that little placeholder, which is just essentially a timer, a progress bar, based on how big the target is.
And that is actually on purpose, because the question that we are asking in this prototype are more technical. That means that we shouldn't focus on the gameplay aspect, so we should keep the gameplay as minimal or as simple as possible, and then so that we can fully focus on the technical bits of the prototype.
Okay, so we saw it. We saw it broken into some, what looked like normal debris, but now we got to break it into smaller, munchable stuff. So we'll go back to the video here.
So breaking it into normal debris is stuff that you've seen before, but when we have this bigger part, it doesn't come apart into more pieces naturally.
Okay.
So in this prototype...
So I usually don't really touch on leaks too much, especially not stuff that's been data mined. But we do have a little bit, I'm going to give you guys a little description at least of what this is actually supposed to be like in game, because we do know as of yesterday, it's coming to PTU in the next couple of days, supposedly. So I don't feel super bad about it. If you don't want to hear this, mute yourself for the next 30 seconds. But essentially, structural salvage is the next step in the salvage profession. It's going to be used on both the vulture and the reclaimer. It'll be giving us a different type of material from scraping, known as construction components instead of RMC. And you'll be able to both fracture and then disintegrate the fractured components that you get from the ship. So if you come across a ship, you go up to it with the vulture, you use the laser to fracture a part of it or multiple parts of it. Sounds like right now it's just one part. And then you use a separate function to disintegrate that part and drag it in so that you can store that stuff in your ship. The kicker, which I think is probably the biggest addition to salvage for most people, is that they're adding buffers to the ships. So now you will be able to fill a salvage buffer. And whenever you're salvaging, this bar fills up, and then it tells you, okay, now you have to go back and get the box out and put it on the cargo grid, and then come back up here and start lasering again. Instead, you fill this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many times until you fill up a buffer, and then go back and take all that stuff out, which I think eliminates one of the biggest problems with the vulture specifically, but also helps with the reclaimer. So there are some nice quality of life improvements coming with this addition, but this is also a very, very big change to how salvage works. And it's an early rendition of it. It's not going to be super high quality. It's not going to have all the animations, but it is another part of the industrial game space, a big part of the industrial game space that's going to add a lot more variability to the way people play this game. So yeah. Let's keep going with this as they show us the prototype again. This is about 4 months ago, I think. Yes, it's like 4 months ago. So the work that they've done since this will be in 3.22.
We are just deleting the thing and replacing it with loads of tiny little placeholder pieces to act as the munched apart debris. What you're also seeing is a prototype for how you will get those pieces into your cargo, which is a little suction field that grabs those little pieces, drags them towards the grinder in the mouth of the Vulture, and from there they're converted into cargo.
Those little pieces that we saw are obviously not arted and everything. I want to remind people again, we've literally never shown anything in a prototype phase before, so forgive me for reiterating this 2 or 3 more times before we're done here. This is designer art, just small pieces to represent the kind of the mass and the size of stuff that we might be using.
It's even worse. It's coda art.
Yes, indeed. This is the programmer equivalent of
These
a
look
white
like
box test.
these look like those little candies. I don't remember what they were called, but they were like the little gummy or maybe they were like gum. Yeah, was it gum? Little chiclets, right? Don't these kind of look like metal chiclets floating in space?
Where I'm not even qualified to make white boxes, so I just rip off other assets that I found in the engine and just slap them together. So that's what this is.
And obviously, without being a prototype, there's no VFX, there's no explosions, there's no beams, there's none of the things that would mask this transition that would normally happen, so that you don't see the pieces just pop in, like they're currently doing.
Yes.
All right, so that was done on your local machine, just you on your workstation doing a local version of the universe here. The next phase, as I understand it, is to test it in PU conditions, and we're going to go ahead and start this video because this video is going to go for a little bit. Tell me what we're doing here.
Chiclet munching.
So,
somebody asked why they're not using Maelstrom for this. There is a chance they are. I don't actually know what they've said about this feature yet. It's going to be interesting to dig into it, but there is a chance they're using Maelstrom, or they are using a placeholder until Maelstrom is ready, which generally they don't do. But if it's easy enough and it works from their design flow, then they tend to make that happen. So this might be just that they're using something until Maelstrom is more fully ready. It sounds like right now, when you break the ships apart, it's not as systemic as Maelstrom would imply. So it might be weird for that not to happen in the future. So I think that that's just something that we can expect to develop later, much like, we're not getting salvage charges, right? People are saying more beams. Salvage charges are also a thing we're going to have to be able to help with this kind of stuff. You're going to go in FPS-wise, and probably just like you're putting mining gadgets on rocks, you'll be able to put salvage charges on ships to blow open holes, get inside, and loot components and stuff. So there's a lot more that's still coming for salvage. This is just the latest update, and probably I'm guessing the next thing we'll see is like siphoning, because refueling is coming along too, and they're going to need that more for pyro. So let's jump to this part. I think this is where we get a little bit more context as to how they're going about this.
What we learned from what we've learned from these tests so far. Obviously, there's some performance stuff, but there's also some gameplay implications from what we've seen. Torsten, you want to talk us through it?
Well, I can talk about some parts that we learned from, right?
Sure.
So the best thing that you can learn from a prototype is actually everything that goes bad, because this is the stuff that you can then iterate on and make the gameplay or the technical stuff even better. So from the gameplay perspective, so I will just talk about the gameplay stuff, and Jacob can talk about what we learned from a technical perspective there. Is from the gameplay we learned that what about big ships? So how, for example, now you saw the Vulture trying to attach to the 890 jump. That is a bit of a wonky situation and it doesn't feel right. So what about Vultures actually munching bigger ships? So how can we make that an interesting gameplay? Then you saw in the first video.
That's actually kind of a point, because if you think about the way the Vulture works, let me pull up a couple of the pictures they have of the Vulture from before. Actually, I think there's really only one I need to find. And it would be this one. No. I know I have a picture of the Vulture in here. Oh, excuse me. In here somewhere doing its classic lasers thing. This was, I think, the first thing I ever saw that I assumed was like structural salvage, which is kind of what they're implying we're doing here. We're using a laser to cut off pieces and then disintegrate them. I'm not sure if they're still planning on doing this whole kind of tractor beltway in, but that was always their original goal with the Vulture. So if you look at this ship, like, it's kind of hard to imagine how it would cut up a piece of a larger ship than it is without lasers. You know, you can't fit in between these prongs, so what are you going to do? And I think that's, I guess it's kind of the same thing. Yeah, so this is the same sort of idea here. How do I get rid of that? There. That's a pretty good representation of what they've been talking about. And this was, I think, as recent as a year ago. So they're still looking at this whole conveyor belt thing, and I think we're going to see more use of lasers just because, like, when you have a bunch of ships doing the same thing, it's easier to make them look believable if they're all using the same tool. Laser's a pretty nice tool.
What happens when the ship transitions into the smaller bits? So the masking is a huge topic that we have to solve so that it feels right and you don't notice that one element pops away and another element pops in. So we definitely have to mask that. Then what you might have seen in the first part is the conversion of materials. I don't know if you paid attention to the filler station bar that basically fills the SCU crates in the backside of the Vulture, but that filled drastically faster than it would normally do with hull scraping. That means that it would be more painful for you to munch because you have to stand up from your seat more often, go down to the filler station, remove the boxes. So this is definitely an issue that we then have to solve because we really don't want to have this gameplay to be more tedious than it's has to be. So we have to find a solution how we can make it more like much nicer for the player to actually remove those crates there. Then the navigation around.
Muted myself. So there's the buffer that we were mentioning earlier, which is just going to be a great change to this, bringing a lot of functionality back to this ship.
The pieces is also something that we notice isn't that fun. So we will probably utilize the tractor beams there because we are anyway working on them. But maybe that makes it much easier for players instead of flying around and getting the pieces between the fork of the Vulture and then having it disintegrate, but instead you pulling the pieces in with a tractor beam. The fork of the Vulture is very limiting in terms of what pieces will fit. So this is also something we learned. And a big thing is, which already is standing out, is how can we make it fun and unique for the Reclaimer. So we just were looking in the prototype at the Vulture, and the big question that our team was asking in the end of that prototype was like, okay, how can we facilitate the claw and the uniqueness visuals or the uniqueness in general of the Reclaimer to actually facilitate that gameplay and have it stand out and be meaningful and fun.
All right, so a lot of gameplay. A lot of gameplay implications from just that little prototype. Jacob, what was your takeaways?
From the tech perspective, I'm looking at things like the performance and also just what am I going to have to account for to achieve the designer's vision here. And I know that we're going to want things like the time that it takes to destroy something to be somewhat proportional for its size and mass. But from the initial prototype, I could already see that a bigger piece taking longer. It already takes a few seconds with the Gladius. If we're going to scale that up and scale up the time as well proportionally to a big target, we're going to have to think about what equation are we going to use for scaling that so that it doesn't take you ages, like sitting there for minutes to break something apart. I got to think about how I'm going to hook in the visual effects and the audio. What dependencies am I going to need to get involved?
Speaking of judging time,
this is just like everything else in this game. This is going to get deep, folks. I mean, if you're worried about engineering, this will be the same kind of thing. Not everybody will have to do this, but if you do, you can probably get pretty deep into it. That's the Salvage edition that we're looking at. This is structural salvage, as they're calling it. It's still tentative, but it is in testing in Evocati, so it's something that we might see in the PTU soon. What do we have next? Oh, I love this one. All right, we got some history here. So we're actually going to start off back in the day. I've done this a couple times already. I'm sorry. You're going to have to bear with me, though. If you've been here before, it's eye candy, right? It's fun to watch. So the first time we heard about these derelict settlements was earlier this year, but The next time we heard about them, we heard quite a bit. So we're going to have a little sit down here. Why don't we watch this segment? We can stop it and start it and talk about this stuff together. This is generally talking about the new locations coming in 320. This is the first look at it. I'm going to give you an updated look right after this, so you'll get to see some of the ways they've expanded this. But a lot of this is coming from the Montreal studio, which again, for anybody who is a Twitch subscriber, whether you signed up today, yesterday, whatever, YouTube member, all of those folks, you will get a video about this development in the next couple of days. It's going to be about this, server meshing, the new Zeus, all that kind of stuff. Really about the work coming out of Montreal. But for now, here are the new Derelict settlements they've been working on coming in the patch next month.
These Derelict settlements, we've been progressing quite well. We started with maybe one settlement last time we spoke, and now we're up to about 15 fully fleshed settlements with a unique look, narrative, and theme around them. The longest part is just finding a theme and then scouting these really epic locations throughout the maps, throughout the planets. And then we try and match the theme. Okay, what theme fits with this location? Let's say we're looking at cool mountaintops with really nice vistas, cool sunsets that are like on the side of a lake or a river, or just a little like a water source on the top of the Alps with like snow and everything. So we come up with these themes, and then we come up on the side with these really cool locations, and then we just like, okay, what can we match together? Let's find a cool name with them, and how do we make these unique settlements? We could easy.
See, now you joke in chat about this being a place to salvage, but I think that it is going to be a bit annoying if we start to see more and more things that are technically not like salvageable. Or I guess this would probably work with Maelstrom, right? But can you salvage this place? Can you come in here and just start destroying the buildings? I think that's what a lot of people are kind of questioning when it comes to Maelstrom. Will there be some kind of a timer when things respawn or get built back up, or what's the deal? So when you start considering features combined with features, things get complicated. But this on its own, these locations, what we're going to look into right after this is how they're doing things like theming and archetype of locations. And you start to realize that procedural generation can cause a lot of repetition, and that can get annoying quickly. That was what some people are complaining about with Starfield. You go to a moon, you run into a refinery station, it looks the same, it's the same layouts, all that stuff. The same thing will happen in Star Citizen. I think it's inevitable. We're going to have some annoying repetition. There's procedural tech here, but when it comes to the idea that you can find this same outpost in a forest location, a desert location, a snow location, a beach location, or you could find this one in any of those locations, or this one in any of those locations, or this one, and then you combine that with also there are the distribution centers, which will look different in different locations. There are space stations, which will look different in different locations, underground facilities and caves. Then I think you start to get enough variability that it won't get super old. But I understand when people look at these places and they're like, oh, I'm going to start to recognize these places when I'm seeing them multiple times. Hopefully there's enough types of locations to avoid that.
Settlements, you could easy see yourself like spend your life with your wife or your husband or whoever you want to play with, and just take it easy. My third favorite settlement would probably be the one beside the lake. It's a small settlement, as if like one person had a small little ship, he was by himself, they landed in the woods, but near enough to a little lake, and he's like, I'm going to make this little, almost like a fishing cabin on the side of the lake and live this super peaceful life. It has a few little cabs that are just like basically for shelter for like shaded areas where they maybe has a little workbench or a little table that they're making like crafting elements. He also built like a little dock so he can like maybe fish there at night. We planted a couple little harvestables as well along the coast of the water. He has his little house to himself. He builds as he wants. Maybe players can come and visit, but it's like a really social kind of small little settlement where I could definitely see myself living if I crash my ship. That's what I would probably do, just make my one little shack and build a little dock and just look at the sunsets at night kind of thing. The next most visually advanced one, we nicknamed it Cable City. There's a lot of wires, so they connect a lot of the solar panels, the windmills to all their habs. It's like overlooking this really cool lake down below. So we thought like it'd be a good idea to bring like the humidity aspect into it. So the terrain, we tried to make it a bit more muddier. We had like tracks of vehicles that went by. The terrain is just a lot more worked, a lot more detailed. So it just makes it feel like, yeah, the people are working there, or there's vehicles going by on a daily basis. They're probably scavenging like a ship that's nearby. We haven't really placed a ship for that one, but like it just story tells really well. Yeah, this a really badass vista with the clouds and the lake and the fog that lifts.
Which one are you guys feeling? Like, are you thinking? I know when I first started doing this, I remember somebody was super into Hurston, and that was the first planet we got, so it was very easy to be into Hurston. If you guys remember when that happened, it was like when you had 2 planets to choose between, Hurston and ArcWarp, it was like, oh man, I'm so into this one. Now we have 4 planets, and you're kind of like, okay, I have more choice. You're gonna have 16 planets at some point, and people will choose a lot different vibes for what they want. But like, I'm looking at these different biomes, and this is obviously Hurston, right? This is like a savanna biome. This is also Hurston, more of the, I guess it's kind of savanna biome, yeah. And then we've got like some of these more foresty places and snow places that are like microtech. What, I guess those are the only 2 planets we really have to choose from right now. What would you guys prefer though? What's your choice? I feel like microtech has just the best views and vistas. Hurston's just so freaking dirty looking, man. Why they gotta be like that, Hurston? Why are you like this?
And the lake and the fog that lifts up in the morning is just a really nice one that came together super quick and super well. So I'd say that one is probably the second most fleshed out that I really really like. The kit and all our object containers have been growing exponentially, which is making our work a lot faster. We're a bit more efficient, and we can use our Rastar tool to populate these settlements a lot quicker. We're building these kits as we go.
For reference, because I don't want to pull up another video. The Montreal team did have 3 developers who came on in March, I think, to talk about their work as environmental artists at Turbulent and the work they're doing here with these derelict settlements. And they said that the first set they did, which was the MSR and the 600i crash on Daymar, took them 3 months to do that one. And now, at least at the time, back then, that was in March, they were doing, I think they said 12 in 3 months. So they were able to take it from, I guess, I don't know, 36 weeks for one down to, I guess, 3 weeks for one. So they're making really big strides in terms of how quickly they can make these locations. And as he mentioned, a lot of that comes from the Rastar tool and these larger library assets we'll see in the next video as well. But that was in March. I don't know how many they're going to add with 322 because, again, this is something that they're reporting back in May. Who knows what they've done since then?
Also, like every new settlement or every new theme that we find that we're missing little elements for like pathways, some visual keys that makes them a little bit more unique. So as we go, we're increasing the size of the kit because we keep adding a couple more per settlement. As these settlements grow, we get to also share with the new settlements that come in. So we're able to do really small settlements, but also go into these really, really large settlements where it's almost like fortresses or small villages.
And we'll see those later.
Some that are like fully fortified.
We have here.
Added gameplay like where we can play King of the Hill. You got other ones with like turrets, defense walls, security gates, but everything's still in derelict kind of shape, a bit more like Mad Max, where it's not abandoned.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. This, oh man. I think when we first watched this, I said on the streams when we were going over this, you could go back to like my reaction of this episode and maybe double check me, but I'm pretty sure I was saying back when we were watching this that this reminds me a ton of some of this stuff reminds me of Shadow of Mordor. I know I said that recently, but back then I think I said Far Cry. This reminds me a ton of like Far Cry, I think it was 3 or 4. 4? one of those Far Cry games. But this looks really Ubisoft to me, and it's just so funny to realize that so much of the team building Star Citizen in the Montreal studio came from Ubisoft. And you're getting that kind of high quality design and work that they do in those games, but it's getting applied to something that we actually love, which is really cool. So just if you notice these locations looking maybe a little bit familiar, could be that.
Derelict kind of shape, a bit more like Mad Max.
I'm also obviously the games industry as a whole is kind of on the same trend, so that could come from many different developers.
It's not abandoned, but like they use ship parts, and these things are still decaying over time through the harsh weather conditions on these planets. These settlements that have been like there for like 100 years. Others that maybe the spaceship just crashed and like they just started building a village for the last couple of years. Some people would make something that's a bit more fortified to defend against nature and all the elements. Maybe some people would make like a bar just to invite their friends over, expecting to be rescued soon enough, I guess, or within the next several years. So we have like a bunch of farms, we have greenhouses, we can have like hostile, and we can have also just social settlements now with a lot more assets to play with. My favorite settlement or outpost that we've created so far is the one deep in the forest. We nicknamed it like Ewok Village. Basically, you crash in the forest, so you're using all like what's around you, the elements. So there's a bit of lumber. So we're bringing a bit more organic feel to this settlement. I could definitely see myself building a nice little town in there that's nice and protected. It has these little half barricaded walls made out of lumber. And it has all these drapes, these fabrics, these tarps that are playing in the wind. We have these old windmills that are in the background with fields of crops that they grew, but also it's a bit of like overgrown vegetation at the same time because it's not like lined up perfectly. It's just like this little savage garden that you can pick some berries to survive or whatever. You have these big greenhouses during the winter season that you can actually grow stuff. You can also use these as harvestables. The player can go visit the greenhouses and just pick some things and add it to his inventory. And we really customized the art direction for each angle. So when the player approaches the settlement, we really have like either a big ship carcass that you can actually like go through, and then it showcases like the whole settlement to the player's eyes. And on the other side, it just shows like different elements and different little hubs in the areas. So you know, like, okay, this is the farming side of the village. This is the more like the town hall or like this little bar side. They have like really nice paths that are developed. When there's mud, we put like little metal plates and panels so that the player, like, you can tell like it's clearly a path. And we define the main player paths, so it's a lot easier for the players to navigate, find like the lootables. So it just feels a lot more alive, this one, because we spend a bit more time. And this is basically our benchmark that we're aiming for. So it would be the forest settlement, my favorite. So yeah, that's wraps it up pretty much for the settlements where we're at. They're evolving quite rapidly now with our new systems and our new tools. So we actually reduced the size of the team because we don't need as many artists, just because our kit is actually quite large now. So with just a handful of artists, we can really produce like a lot of settlements within a couple week period.
So we've heard some conflicting reports on Rastar and the performance of it, and it may be that it's a difficult tool to use, but it's definitely becoming apparent that it's letting them do things a lot faster. I mean, ever since they started talking about Rastar, it's probably a couple years ago, I would say over the last couple of years or so, locations have started speeding up a lot more. If you look back at these release views, and you look at like location additions, you'll see, you know, back in the day we would get, when they talk about locations, it'd be like new asteroids, or like the Stanton system polish, which is, you know, that's good. That's planet tech. We got different types of cave entrances, and then there would be like a city and a planet, which was good, but those were like the big pillars of the location, the system. We weren't really getting like small locations that quickly. It wasn't until around 2021 or so that we started to see like this stuff fall in place. The hospitals, the clinics, all over the place came in. Suddenly we were getting derelict spaceships on planets again. From there we got the derelict settlements, the next derelict spaceships, the racing tracks, the then the Derelict settlements, and the new city in Lorville. So like the locations that were small that included some gameplay started to make, I think, more appearances than earlier on in development, when it was kind of like the base layers, ground textures, geology, spacescaping, stuff like that. So I like what we're seeing from that. And what this was really just the beginning. This, oh, not this. Where are we? This is really the actual look at what we're going to get in 3.22. So what we just saw again were the update back in May. That was back when they realized that they had everything they needed to fulfill this goal. But it seems like they expanded on that even more towards the end of the year. So here is the larger expansion that will be coming in the next update.
System. They're completely system agnostic, so you can expect to see these outposts in other systems as well. And of course, we're going to...
Here we go.
You! We are French Canadian on the... Here, cool. All right, guys, my name is Nicolas Pinchot. I'm from Montreal. I'm assistant art director, and I'm here today to show you the next new Derelict settlement we did. But just before that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who worked on that mandate. You guys made an awesome work. I'm super happy and proud to be here today to show you that, all of you guys, and to the world. So let's go to the chase, and let me present you the new Derelict settlement.
So you can see that these came from what they were showing us before, but I think they expanded on it a little bit more. Made it feel more like the settlements we're getting in Pyro as well. They got a bit more creative too. So this is like, I mean, the scale of this is ridiculously big. I didn't notice, like when you're looking at it like this, obviously it looks pretty large, but then when they get down on the actual ground and you can see like how far you have to go, this is like a city. So these locations aren't just little outposts for the record. Let's look at just so we all can remember. This is what our outposts look like right now. the good old days. We're going to look back on this time and be like, oh God, the good old days. This is what our outposts look like right now. We've had these for 8 years. No. 6 years. We've had these since 2018 because you didn't have ground locations for that. Yeah. So 5 years we've been using these. No updates. No new social locations down on the ground. Just bunkers and shooting and a couple caves. To go from that to this is a big step up. And I think more than just being large locations, these are also very modular locations. I don't think when they put this down, this is how this will always look, you know? This could look in 5, 10 different versions. Hopefully. I guess we hope that's what they do. But they're big locations. And they're beautiful locations. They all look very different. Unfortunately, they're all very trashy. Stanton, Hurston, please fix yourselves. But they are focusing on one specific version of their architecture right now. There are, I think, 6 or 7. Where was that picture? Here we go. So right now they're building out this colonialism, frontier vibe sort of construction. We have utilitarian outposts. That's what I was just showing you on Google here. This is a utilitarian outpost. Very basic one, but it is. We still have streamlined metaclassicism, Henoism, high-tech, and super modernism that they'll have to build at some point. So they're not all going to look like this forever. I think they're just trying to really get this archetype good to go. Colonialism and pyro, and the more kind of like derelict stuff in Stanton, because you can see here it says frontier vibe, that's pyro, and then derelicts would be kind of the Stanton stuff. So I don't know when they would expand on different architectural types. I agree, it's kind of annoying seeing trash everywhere, but it is nice that they are new locations. But what are they going to do with them? I don't know how much they're going to expand missions inside of these places, but they do talk a bit about what they have planned. So let's listen to that.
Pretty cool, guys, eh? Oh, by the way, we made more than 4. It's not just 4. We made more than that. So we split those settlements into categories, social and hostile. In the social one, we will have drop-off mission, shops, food, loots, and drinks. And hostile one, obviously, will be more focused combat. Let me show you what it looks like.
Okay, so I don't think he really says too much more after this. Let's listen to the conclusion here.
I like the end. The end is awesome. All right, in summary, guys, we're going to have a lot of new location on planets, links with nice mission and good gameplay. And the most important, all those locations will be in Q4 this year, available in the game.
That's just confirming the 3.22 part of this. So there are some pretty hefty, I think, things to consider with these locations. Just like a lot of other things in this game, they are exciting. I think they are cool at face value because they're diversifying the game. But they're going to be cool for a quarter. And then they'll be part of the game, and they'll be unmentioned. Well, not unmentioned. But you guys know how it is. Like, nobody really talks about the fact that we have 100 people in servers anymore. It's just accepted. That's just how things are. Nobody is going to pay any mind to the fact that we have tractor beams on ships in 2 quarters. Like, these things come in, and then the next thing becomes very important because we're always moving forward. So these locations are going to be cool, but they're not going to have a huge lasting effect that changes the whole game. I think that will come later once again, when they start to put more missions into these places. And more importantly, when we get actual exploration kind of stuff, scanning and data. I think one of the coolest parts of this game is that data is going to be a commodity. And I'm hoping they talked a little bit about it at CitizenCon. I'd still like to hear it absolutely confirmed, and maybe somebody in chat can confirm for sure this is true. But all of these locations that we normally, you hit the B button and a bunch of quantum locations pop up, they're not going to be there. You're going to have to buy the location, right? Buy the map that tells you where a location is, or go out and explore it and find it yourself. But these random derelict outposts are literally derelict outposts because nobody really goes there that much. They're not actually that well known. And so in the game, the idea is that you're not really going to just fly straight to one of these things or just randomly show up. So hopefully that makes them a little bit more special, and makes them seem more significant. But really what's going to come down to it all is, I think, the missions that they throw in here. And luckily we have a new faction coming in the game too, but I think they're just going to be like a repainted Ninetales for now. So in terms of mission variability, we don't know what it means with these locations, but the locations themselves do add some nice differences to the game, I guess. We're going to talk about Arena Commander Part 2. We got a 2-part update, kind of like the design stuff that we looked at earlier today. It was fun because Arena Commander was not doing well before. It really struggled, and they did the first update to it earlier this year, which made it more usable. It's still not running that great, but like, it's got good game modes. They've updated maps, settings, UI, all that stuff is better. But the real exciting part was the what's it called? The multi-crew support, the private servers, and the general expansion of like FPS gameplay. And I think that's what we're finally getting with 322. So this is the real Arena Commander update we were excited for, and that's what we're going to touch on here with this video.
So once you click launch, you'll go straight into the game, and the first thing you're going to notice is the new spawn screen, which is on almost every mode.
So this is what's going to be new. This is the multi-crew spawn support, I think.
Spawn screens are our way of essentially making sure that once you're in game, you can do things that you couldn't do before in the Arena Commander. You'll be able to change your ship. You'll be able to change your loadout in game. All of these things are going to be things that you can do with the new spawn screen. It's the way that you can see the battlefield from...
I was a little early on that.
...to actually get into the game. It's essentially our way of making sure that the player knows everything they need to know before they start shooting.
So what's great about this new spawn screen, among many things, it finally lets us bring multi-crew to Arena Commander. You'll be able to party up with friends and join their ships in free flight, both swarm modes and squadron battles.
You can just click on their ship and just jump straight into it. No longer do you have to awkwardly park next to each other and then get into the other player's ship. You can just spawn directly into the turret of that person's vehicle.
So like, I don't know how many of you, somebody mentioned it in chat, I don't know how many of you constantly want to just like get a group of people in a hammerhead and fly out and do like a claim jumper mission, and just everybody can just sit there and shoot at ships, Like, why couldn't it be easier? here we are. Now we can just do that for hours on end together. It's like, this could be the way that people choose to spend their, like, you know, their Star Citizen nights playing with friends, just battling it out in multi-crew scenarios, because that's kind of the fun part of Star Citizen that you can't do as much in other games. And being able to do it in a packaged environment is going to be really great. I do hope that this isn't just you can spawn into the seat and you're stuck there. I hope this means you can also move around the interior of the ship and take care of things, because like was also said in chat, that would be good for engineering support.
For now, for these combat modes, you'll be locked into your seat, but I'm personally super excited for eventually having engineering gameplay also in Arena Commander and laying the foundations with this spawn screen. It leads into that. And this is just the first step. We're excited to eventually work on engineering and combined arms gameplay for these modes as well.
All right, so they're probably, in that case, they're probably not going to care too much about letting us get out of our seat until engineering's in game. And I'm pretty sure Torsten said he's internally he's targeting this next summer for engineering. So I guess we'll probably be locked to our seats until then, at the least. So that's the big part of the Arena Commander update. There's also these maps that we're getting. We're getting this sort of, looks like a Derelict outpost is going to be an FPS map. Bloodshot Ridge. This looks like also a Derelict settlement. This is getting FPS in flight mode, so you'll be able to fight around this one. Let's take a look real quick at what they're doing with character. Oh, and there's also some graphical updates. So we got 2 more things plus the AI to go over. They've talked a lot about how they've made this hair the way that they've wanted to make it. It is good looking stuff. They're using this sort of tapered effect, which from what I'm hearing is something not many companies can do because they just don't want to put the money and time into making this approach work. So a lot of companies do stick to this more common approach, and what CIG is doing does seem to lead to it looking more kind of wispy and fluffy. It also has a lot of like control. You have a lot of control over like how you color it, where you color it, what the length is, all that kind of stuff. And here are some looks at the new hairstyles coming out, new updates.
This is actually what you're getting. Into the view.
So it's these first 20 styles that will be coming in 3.22. It's not a huge update. It's just a little extra. Well, okay, they called it a major hair update. CIG, why you do this to me? Like, it's not a major update. And they're like, major update. So that is the hair update. Again, not this stuff, just the first 20 styles I showed you. That's what's coming in 3.22. And then we've also got some engine changes that are expected to come. They are not on the roadmap, but we were told they were coming this quarter. So I'll show you them, but consider them tentative, giving us a look at clouds, fog, and weather.
Clouds and fog worked on by Carsten Wenzel in the R&D team. The first new feature is the light shafts, where volumetric shadows from clouds cast into the atmosphere. They're truly volumetric and 3D, fully integrated. They're not just a post effect as it is usually done in games. With this, the atmosphere from an overcast sky gets darker, and this is important for planets and locations with bad weather. Another component is the new ground fog. It follows the terrain up to a specified elevation for different locations. It is also fully integrated into the atmosphere. It receives volumetric shadows from clouds and terrain. It reduces the light scatter into the view ray. And in this video, we're showing all the features combined together. In addition, we made many improvements to cloud shaping to allow for more variation and details. The shape noise blending, a vertical variation, has been improved a lot.
It's quite crazy how big a difference the lighting can make. And then when with these areas, the ground fog just adds a lot of depth.
Also, we made
I mean, like, I didn't even realize there was a ridge right here until the ground fog appears there.
Also, we made improvements to shorten long distance read, and the tiling is less visible.
I think this is the most impressive, and this kind of shows the best of what they're doing with clouds. I always pause it here. I'll let it play through and then show you like half the screen, but the terrible jitteriness we get with clouds have been a problem since we ever got them, and I don't know what they did, man. I'm sure it's in the monthly report somewhere that we read through, but this looks great.
And
I'll do that again. Just so you can kind of see how much it changes from one side to the other. You can see on the right, that's old. We're all used to kind of the jittery clouds and the edges and stuff. It looks like freaking Dots ice cream or something. And then they smoothed it out a lot with whatever they did here.
And best of all, we're going to include all these new features and improvements in the next 3.22 release. Okay. Thank you.
So, I know they've been raked over the coals for dates and setting release times for things. So I assume if they're saying things like that, they're pretty confident about it. The fact that it's not on the roadmap, they put a lot of things into the game that don't end up on this release view of the roadmap. So we'll see what happens. I'm pretty sure people have been confirming in the Spectrum thread that those things are still happening. Jake still talks about that, but he generally points towards the release view and the tentative listing. So I don't know. That is the last of the information I have on like what's likely going to be in this patch. We might still see something else added. We might see another surprise ship dropped. And there will probably be little small things, quality of life changes that don't show up on these roadmaps. So keep an eye out. Over the next couple weeks, I'll try to cover you and get you more info on that, but that's 322.